Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Moms Like Me podcast, powered by Support Now. It's been a minute since I've recorded a podcast, so I'm super excited to be back in the seat with my guest today. As y'all know, my favorite part of my job at Support Now is this podcast. It's the opportunity to sit down with real women, with real moms that I myself am inspired by. And as I often say, there is nothing more to me, there's nothing more inspiring than finding women and moms turn their pain into purpose. And so Katie Talman certainly fits that bill through everything that I have learned about her. And so I'm very excited, Katie, to welcome you to the
Mhm.
podcast today.
Hi, Jordan. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you.
So, Katie, your story I find so inspiring, and I don't want to summarize it too much because your story is best articulated by you. But to give our listeners just a little peek under the hood here, your story is around loss. And I want to kind of give that warning at the front of the podcast because I know that particularly baby loss can be very triggering for people. That said, it would be really great, Katie, if you don't mind kind of opening up about your own experience. I know you always wanted to be a mom.
hmm
I know that that experience came differently to you than many others, but if you don't mind kind of starting from 2018 when you found out you were pregnant.
Yes. So my husband and I, we were very intentional on how we wanted to start our family. We thought we had it all planned out, that we were going to be married for 2 years before we attempted trying to conceive. I need fertility treatments to get pregnant. So, we started with the progesterone and then with an ovulation medicine. And after 3 rounds, we were so lucky and got pregnant, and we were pregnant with twins. At around 9 weeks, we lost one of our twins, baby B, to vanishing twin syndrome, which is a miscarriage. And then at 12 weeks, we went in for our big appointment with the maternal fetal medicine specialist. And that's whenever they told us that there was fluid behind baby A's neck. And we did what's called a CVS procedure. And so they took a sample of my placenta. And over the weekend, they were able to do the genetic testing, get her karyotype back. And we found out that we had a baby that had Turner syndrome, a girl, only happens to girls. And with Turner syndrome, it's like a 99% chance that the baby's not going to make it. And we chose to keep going. And there were times where it felt like, okay, we might make it through. We made it through the first trimester. Most babies die in the first trimester. Maybe we've already beat the statistics since we've gotten this far. Once we got to 20 weeks, that's when things really changed, and she wasn't growing. She wasn't advancing. Her organs were so compacted, and that's when everything really changed for us. And when we started, looking at funeral homes and meeting with areas that she could go ahead.
No, it's so difficult because as you described your kind of your fertility journey, like the lead up was challenging. All
Mhm.
this, I would imagine, just all this enthusiasm, twins, here you are, and then you get pregnant, and kind of that joy, that excitement is just like dissipating, even while she's inside of your belly.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, Katie, how did you process this? What was your emotion toward it? How did you want people around you to behave? Because I would imagine it kind of created this awkwardness for people that weren't quite sure what to do because inevitably, I'm sure that you knew that it wouldn't necessarily result in the typical happy ending that a lot of parents experience.
Yeah. Well, when we lost baby B, that was so devastating, but then we tried so hard to just, be excited for the baby that we had left. And we had, a lot of people wait until they're 12 weeks to tell anybody that they're pregnant. So we finally got there and we just started to tell people. And then we were having to say, but, we already lost, we lost her twin, or we lost the twin. We didn't know her gender yet. So we get to the 12 weeks. I'm so excited to be here and to finally be there. And then to get the news was just it was the biggest gut punch. And then to tell people, we're pregnant, but that was I can't even describe it. I don't know how even survived that moment in my life. Every day was so difficult, being out in public was so hard because, you're not used to seeing people that are this far along pregnant, and it's not gonna be a happy ending.
Did it make you want to stay inside, or did you find yourself
Yes.
like, what how did you actually act? Because you're right, like, in people's first instinct, and I think this is super well intentioned, you see a pregnant woman, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, you must be so excited." So how
Right.
did you actually manage that disconnect between random strangers or even acquaintances of yours with, like, your own like, knowing inside what was gonna happen?
Yeah, so I started to finally tell friends. I didn't do, like, the big public Facebook announcement, honestly, because we weren't sure if she was going to make it. For some reason, I had in my head that if I made it public, that I would somehow jinx it. So I was like, "I can't put it online, I will tell friends in person. I will reach out to people that I know that are prayer warriors, can you pray for this?" I was frantically going to different churches and asking them to pray for us.
Mm.
I chose in public, depending on who it was, some people just by looking at them, I could feel like I could, tell them. Some people I was like, "No, if I tell this random person, I'm gonna ruin their day, and I'm gonna make them so awkward. They're not gonna know what to say. I don't need to put that on them." But, yeah, I hid inside for a while. It was really hard, or at the grocery store, I wasn't as talkative as I might have been to the person checking me out. It yeah, it was horrible. It was horrible going through a pregnancy that most likely wasn't gonna make it, that you were begging to make it every day, and also wanting to still love this baby that was in
Yeah.
you, and I wanted to still be able to, shine a light on my belly and play with her that way and talk to her, but also so scared to get attached, because it's just gonna be taken away. It was it was horrible. It was
Katie, were
horrible.
you working at this time? Were you working outside the home? How did you manage like, how did you actually did like, oh, yeah, I'm just so curious.
Yeah, so, I worked for a family as, like, a house manager slash nanny for them, and, told the parents at around, I think it was the weekend we were waiting on the results. They didn't know I was pregnant, so I hit them all with everything at once. She had been through loss herself. She had had a rare genetic disorder, that ended, shortly after the first trimester. She'd been through infertility. She had kinda walked a similar road. So, if there was a silver lining in this, it was that there was a lot of empathy there, and true empathy, and, they it was hard. It was so hard, but, I will say that I was lucky in that my schedule was fairly flexible. The kids would be at school during the day. I had a lot of alone time. During this time, I could go and, seek out a counselor at a church and just kinda protect myself.
Yeah. So, Katie, I can so easily imagine that ambiguity that you kind of describe of wanting to honor the pregnancy, wanting to honor her, while also being incredibly fragile towards your own emotions, knowing that you'd likely not get to like see this baby develop. And there comes this like weird construct of like, I don't want to grow too close, but I also want to honor her and what the time I have. What did you choose to do? Did you and Tyler develop this a rhythm of what could bring you peace while also not making it harder for yourself, frankly?
I don't know if this answers the question, but what brought us peace every day was listening to her. We had the Doppler machine that we bought right after baby B died, just to bring us a little sense of comfort. And we had no idea that anything was wrong with our remaining baby. So just listening every single morning and every single night to her heartbeat and just telling ourselves, okay, she is here. Today she is here. That was really good. There were times that I definitely would have to come home in the middle of the day just to use it because my anxiety was through the roof.
Yeah.
And I knew that because I was online and I found a Facebook group for Turner syndrome and reading people's stories that have been pregnant and that have lost, I feel like I had a pretty good grasp and understanding that when a baby dies, you need to act quickly if you wanna have, like, the best outcome for yourself
Mm,
afterwards. Um, so we were doing it a lot for our anxiety, but also to protect ourselves in the after and for delivery and what
yeah.
that could look like. I did a lot of yoga. I did a lot of yoga. I did a lot of going to church and, you know, just singing worship songs, just modern worship music. Those are the things that just made me feel a little more held uh, in the time where I was really suffering.
The friends and family that stand out to you in those weeks and months leading up to her birth, what did they do that made you feel safe? What did they say that made you feel comforted?
I don't have a good answer for that because I didn't feel that way. Um,
Mm,
I did not feel supported through my pregnancy. The answer is different afterwards, but only years after. A lot of people didn't wanna talk about it at all, um, or they wanted to, like, wrap a bow around the situation. I had so many friends that were pregnant at the same time. I had 2 friends that were due the same week, all with girls. I It was a lot of that time. I disassociated a lot with people because I couldn't, it just was too much. I
yeah,
don't feel like I had a lot of support from my family, my siblings, or my friends during the time, unfortunately.
yeah,
And then even with Tyler, like, we were grieving differently. I wanted to stay home and protect myself from the outside world because it was too much, where he wanted to be out more and be with friends and keep his mind off of what was happening.
right,
But
right.
he wasn't physically pregnant to where people could come up to him, and
And
to blow
create
your whole
and create
yeah,
a
and
conversation that leads you
yeah,
to be feel awkward and have to, and then because 'cause you're not just saying you not to have to answer the question, and if you're honest, then you're trying to my guess is trying to make them feel like, "Oh, you didn't do a wrong thing by asking, and I don't wanna ruin your day," so now you're feeling kind of the guilt on all sides. I mean, there's a lot of complexity to that, Katie, and by the way, I really appreciate your honesty around what you experienced from your community because to me, this is why I love the podcast because it's an opportunity to learn from experiences that you either relate to or don't so that we can better serve the people we love when inevitably life happens. So I
yeah.
thank you. Like, thank you just for being honest because people don't get it right. And I think most people are very well intended in the way that they handle things and they just don't know. They don't know. So, Katie, I would love for you to share. You talked about there was a turning point at 20 weeks, kind of what unfolded from there, and I wanna get to the part where, again, there was opportunity for you to kind of change the way certain parties responded, and so I would love for you to share a little bit more about what happened 20 weeks on.
So at 20 weeks, just a devastating appointment. We were able to make it to our 22-week appointment, and that was that was it. The writing was on the wall. We were not gonna it This was not gonna go the way that we had wanted it to. We saw her due date change for months later, and that's because she had not grown, and her heart wasn't functioning. Everything was this was we knew that this was gonna be it. So,
Hmm,
we got to we're now at 23 weeks and 2 days, and Tyler and I are laying in bed, and we are listening to her before we go to sleep, and she sounded so good, and she sounded so strong, so we started to just whisper the idea of, "Okay, maybe we'll make it to 24. Maybe somehow we will." But the next day when we woke up and we checked, and, it was silent. And from there, we just went to the hospital. I mean, we tried again and we tried again, but, by this point, we had become professionals at using the Doppler machine, so, We knew that she had passed, and so at that point, we called our doctor, and they let us know to head to labor and delivery, and there would be someone waiting for us.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. So you give birth. I can't imagine the emotions running through your head, Tyler's head. Do you
Yeah,
remember those times?
yeah, I remember the side door we went in, and I remember, meeting Carol, and I'm so glad that she was working that day. She specializes in bereavement, and she was very tender with us, and I didn't I didn't have my doctor there, though, so I remember she was so lovely and that she was able to call our doctor, on his day off and talk to him about what he thought the next best steps were for us, because I hadn't heard about the certain thing they wanted to give me. I had heard of Pitocin, but I'd never heard of this thing called laminaria, and, he helped walk me through the next steps to make me feel comfortable.
Mm,
They were so kind into having the maternal fetal medicine doctor come in one more time and just show me her on the machine, just so I could see her one last time and me, and just,
mm,
give me some peace of mind that, that we needed to start the next steps. And, um, convincing a body to have a baby when the body is not ready to was not easy. That was a very long and drawn out process that I think I'm still trying to understand the trauma of some of the things that happened. I wasn't monitored at night overnight. The night nurse didn't monitor my stomach and wasn't monitoring my contractions. And so they were giving me medicine, assuming that my body would take a certain amount of time to process. And it went the opposite way, and I ended up needing 2 different, shots of what's called terbutaline that they only give to mothers who are in a preterm labor.
mm.
My uterus almost blew. I think I'm still really trying to process what happened, but, it was, uh it was really difficult. It was very quiet. The room was very quiet. The lights were always off in there. It was not happy, though we could hear all the joy outside of our
Mm.
room for other families and see the balloons pass by and, the cheers, but, it was really rough, Jordan. It was not it was not a good time.
So when she was born, what happened?
So when Everly was born, I screamed so loudly, like there was this moan that came out of me. And it was probably just everything that I had been holding in for so long. Everything, all my fears and emotions just came out in one just like primal yell. And then I got to hold her. And then everything changed when I got to hold her. And, um, I felt like a mom for really like the first time, and I got to see her and look at her, and I just was in so much awe that I created this child. And I was so proud of myself, you know, and proud of her. So proud of her for making it as long as she did, and proud of myself for, bringing life into this world, and even though it looked different than most people. But yeah, just this overwhelming peace came that was like, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better gift, because if I think about how, the time with her was so short,
Mhm.
but I think that overwhelming peace, everything that I felt, that grace, the calmness, had I not felt that, I wouldn't have been able to really appreciate the small moment that I had with her. The less than 24 hours of getting to be with her. So,
First of all, thank you for sharing all of that.
mhm.
I know this is, um, unpacking a lot of layers, and it's a great reminder for people of just how layered this all is, and just a wonderful reminder of the blessings that children are. Like, it's such a remarkable thing that we're able to do this, and, to be gentle and to be grateful because it is such a miracle when life is born, even in the ways that Everly was born.
Mhm.
You spoke a lot about perhaps some, like, discontent in the process of labor and experiences, but you've also been incredibly instrumental in leading efforts in your state to give other moms that are in your position a better experience.
Mhm.
I would love for you to share a little bit more about the pivot loss to how you then had an opportunity to make things better for moms just like you.
Yes. So, with Everly's diagnosis and finding out, at 12 weeks came knowledge. And with that came some power. And I was able to do a lot of research. And in my research, I kept hearing something called a cuddle cot. And I had learned that there was a cooling bassinet that could be there for families if they've experienced the unimaginable. And so, what it does is you can place the baby in the cuddle cot a or a carrying cradle. There's 2 different companies that do it. And when you're not holding the baby then can be preserved, and it will slow down the deterioration process.
Mm.
And so parents aren't forced to have their baby taken from them to be refrigerated and go back and forth to the morgue. This is a terrible scenario. This is, um, people wouldn't know about this unless they had to know about it. And in that case, that means something very unfortunate happened. So most of the times when a baby dies, it comes out of nowhere, and parents didn't have any time to prepare for this. A lot of hospitals don't have cuddle cots. A lot of hospitals do, but a lot don't. And so they don't know what to ask for. And I asked for one as soon as I got to the hospital. There was only a couple available at my hospital. Shortly after Everly was born, another family wasn't able to have one. So I was really lucky to know what one of these devices were and to know to ask for one and to make sure that my hospital had one. But not every person is as fortunate. And a lot of families don't find out about cuddle cots until after they've already left the hospital. And that just adds such another layer to their grief. And it adds anger and it adds what if. And the most incredible thing about a cuddle cot is it gives families a gift of time, which is irreplaceable. You have more time with your baby and you get to be with them and have a little bit more dignity because the deterioration process happens really fast, especially with babies, with infants. So you are given this precious gift of time because you have this device at your disposal. And after after I had Everly in 2019, it took me a while to kind of be able to talk about it, to be able to talk about what cuddle cots are, to be able to share about fundraising opportunities. Because most of the time, when there is a cuddle cot in a hospital, it's because another family in their pain donated one to make sure that nobody would ever go without one. There are tons of organizations where their mission is to stock hospitals with these devices. So even though I had one, I have been so overwhelmed with emotion for other families that never got to have one and to hear from them and the pain that it created for them. So one day a woman knocked on my door. Her name is Mihaela Plisa, and she was running for Texas state house. And when I answered the door, we started to form a relationship with each other. And she heard about Everly, and she knew about my story, and she knew about fundraising opportunities for Cuddle Cots. And then together, we decided there should be legislation created over this.
Mm.
And so, Texas, I'm so proud to say, as of September 1st, it's the very first state to make it mandatory for all hospitals to have cooling devices in them.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was an incredible uh, thing that we did together. And over the spring, I was able to go to the Capitol and testify at the House and then testify at the Senate on the floor and talk about Cuddle Cot and what it does, how it's impactful. And they changed the name to House Bill 37 to Everly's Law. And they named it after Everly, which is just such an honor, because there's something very unique about naming a child that you don't believe is ever going to come home. And it's really hard knowing that you're not going to see that name on school papers that come home and on the backpack and, on the roller little suitcase that you get monogrammed. But now I know that, all over Texas, mothers are protected because of her.
It really is such a beautiful thing that her her name, her legacy lives on, and you get to experience her in a far different way than I know you ever anticipated, but she still gets to have this impact that must be in some ways just I think that the way you framed that was so beautiful that I never thought about that, how naming a child that you know you're not going to get to watch develop, how challenging that is.
Mhm.
And yet it's a person. And so she has the dignity of getting to see you have the dignity of getting to see that name flourish. No one ever intended to write this story in this way. And it's a really beautiful way to capture all the goodness that she brought to you and now that you can give to others. I mean, you must be so proud, Katie. I'm so proud.
I am so proud. It's another way that I get to mother her. It's
Yeah.
a it's a way that I get to mother her here while she's there, and again, protect all these families that experience loss and that will experience loss.
And Katie, one thing we didn't mention, but I wanna make sure our listeners know is that you also have 2 boys. So
I
even
do.
after all of this, you have 2 boys. So the thing that I think is just so inspiring, Katie, is you experience this very life-altering, moment, grief, and you pushed forward, and you continue to push forward holding all of these things. It's why I was so eager to have you on the podcast because, again, it's turning pain into purpose, and I know that sounds such a simplified version of what you actually experience day to day. I know it's not as simple as that because nothing is ever as simple as it appears from the outside.
No. No, it's not, but I also think it's important to just note that I really died in 2019, and, we're 2025 now. It has taken me a while to be able to really speak freely, and, if you would have told me in 2019, 2020 that this was gonna happen, I don't know that I would be able to say, "Yeah, I'm gonna have the strength to be able to do that." So it's taken some time, to I've walked with grief for a while, and it feels different than it used to.
Yeah. Yeah, you've given yourself, it seems, the time to process
Mhm,
whatever emotion, whether that's sadness, anger,
mhm.
fear, instead of just rushing to this next milestone that potentially could have put you actually further back because it sounds like you really needed to sit with just the sadness.
Yeah, I needed to sit with it. I needed to get pregnant again. I needed
Mm.
to know that I could have children here and that, I was gonna be a mother to children on Earth. I needed that desperately. Getting pregnant with Luke saved my life, truly saved my life, and that was really hard to navigate a pregnancy after loss and was still very hard to navigate my pregnancy with Ryan, my second son.
Mm.
But yeah, I needed to know that, they gave me a lot more strength, having my sons. They gave me a lot of strength, and it's like, okay, I knew things at home and here are okay, now let me go out there and be an advocate for others.
Yeah, it's, I'm in a phase of my life where people are having babies all the time.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I know of very sad stories like this, and, I know that people like myself that haven't been in your shoes directly, they hear stories like this, and they're not quite sure how to help. They're not sure, and I'm really hoping that this conversation reaches the right person because we need to be gentle with each other, and we can't jump to assumptions of how someone's feeling and what they need that day. It sounds like you've really been intentional about the time you needed, the people you needed, and I really hope again, there's one family in particular that's personally in the back of my head that I hope this reaches them
Mm.
because, what you experience, it feels so dark. It feels so lonely,
Mhm.
and you're also shining this light that it is dark, it is lonely, and you can come out on the other side, and it won't ever look the way that you ever expected it to. But you will, like, you'll come out on the other side of this.
Yeah.
And that's not me trying to, like, sugarcoat it because I think we do live in a society that so quickly wants to flip to the happy ending. It's not, sad then happy. But as humans, you show everyone how, like, if you put one step in front of each other slowly at the pace that feels right for you, there's life at the end of it. And
Mhm.
your 2 boys are so lucky because they get to they're gonna learn a lot about life through you, Katie. And
Yeah.
how old are they now?
Luke is 5 and Ryan is 3.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and they are great. They are great.
So I know we talked about this at the beginning before we started recording. I am confident that there are people who are going to say, "Oh my God, this Everly law is so amazing. I want to find out how I can learn more about how I can institute this in my own hospital, in my own state." Again, even if it's not at a government level. So one of the things Katie and I talked about was potentially linking in the show notes opportunities to learn about how you can advocate, fundraise, learn more about, what this might look like in your own community. And to me, the first place that anyone should start is just educating themselves on what this experience is like, which is why I'm so grateful, Katie, to your not just your time, your vulnerability in sharing your story again and again, because this is how we get better. Is there anything else before we wrap up that you want to say or share with the audience that you haven't yet expressed?
I think that we all have our own corners in this world. We all have things that are meaningful to us. For some people, it's, their passion is in adoption. For some people, it's in rescue for animals. Mine is here. Mine is helping to protect families who have experienced loss and that will experience loss. So I think that if we can all think about our corners and what's important to us, and if we all work on those corners, we can make a big impact in this world. And don't be afraid. You know, if you have an idea, don't be afraid to reach out to your local rep because you really never know what one conversation can do. I mean, this Everly's Law is groundbreaking. Again, the first state to do this, and every state wants to do it. Every single one wants to do it. And it's huge because I know it's going to be nationwide, probably in the next couple years. Again, I will never know how many lives were impacted from it. But if you focus on your corner of the world, I truly think we can all do such a great job to make this world a better place. And I know that that sounds so cliche, but you really just don't know what one conversation will lead to.
I love those words. Again, never doubt the impact that even a single person can have,
Mhm.
because that's how change emerges. Katie Talman, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I am so grateful for your time. And again, for our listeners that want to learn more, we will be sure to post it where we can on the show notes. And Katie, I look forward to staying in touch and finding all the ways that we can continue to support you.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.